The missing photo. Boston in the fall is all kinds of beautiful, red and gold leaves on the sidewalks, that crisp smell of rain in the air, the kind of cold that makes you want to wrap yourself in an old hoodie and drink shitty gas station coffee. I should have been enjoying it. Instead, I was sitting on my bed, staring at my phone, trying not to lose my mind. Because all of my photos with Caleb were gone, not just deleted, not just moved to some folder I forgot about. Gone, like they never existed. I scrolled through my gallery, my stomach twisting tighter with every swipe. Pictures from last weekend, still there. Photos of my cat, untouched. Even those dumb screenshots of tweets I thought were funny at 3 a.m., all there. But the ones with Caleb, wiped clean. I told myself it was a glitch, some dumb iCloud issue. Maybe I deleted them by accident in a late-night post-breakup haze. It wouldn't be the first time I made an emotional decision after 2 glasses of shitty rosé. Except, I didn't remember doing it. And that's what scared me. I met Caleb 2 years ago at a dive bar in Cambridge. He was the kind of guy who made you feel like you were the only person in the room when he talked to you. Smart, a little too charming for his own good, the kind of guy who quoted Goodfellas and The Godfather like they were scripture. And for a while, it was good. Until it wasn't. Until the fights got worse. Until the little things, like a missed text or me getting home late, turned into big things. Until I realized I was apologizing for shit I didn't even do, just to keep the peace. So I left, packed my stuff, moved across the river into a tiny 1-bedroom in an old brownstone that smelled like rain and wood polish. Told myself I was starting over. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could finally breathe. Until the photos disappeared. And a week later, one of them came back. I woke up groggy as hell, still half dreaming about something I couldn't remember. Rolled over, rubbed my eyes. And there it was, sitting right there on my nightstand. A photo. Our photo. The one I took on our trip to New Hampshire last winter. The 2 of us grinning like idiots in front of a frozen lake. The photo that was gone from my phone. I sat up so fast my vision blurred. How the hell did it get here? I hadn't printed it. I hadn't even backed it up anywhere. And yet there it was. Perfect. Crisp. Like it had never been deleted in the first place. I stared at it, my skin crawling. Then, very slowly, I turned it over. There was something written on the back. 3 words, scrawled in my own handwriting. You've ain't ID. I dropped the photo like it burned me. My own handwriting. My own damn handwriting. But I didn't write that. I grabbed my phone, snapped a picture of the note, and sent it to Tasha with a single message. Tell me I'm not losing my mind. Tasha was my best friend, my human lie detector. If anyone could talk me down from the ledge, it was her. A minute passed, then another. Then, Tasha, WTF. Did Caleb do this? I exhaled, running a shaky hand through my hair. No way. He didn't have a key. I changed the locks the week I moved in, made sure there was no way he could get in. And even if he could, why? What kind of psycho sneaks into his ex's apartment just to plant an old photo? I had a different thought then, a worse one. What if this wasn't about Caleb? What if someone else had been in my apartment? My stomach turned. I checked my front door, tested the locks, even wedged a chair under the handle like I was in some cheap horror movie. Then I checked the windows. The bedroom one was unlocked. My blood ran cold. Had I left it open? I never left my windows open at night. Boston might not be New York, but it sure as hell wasn't Mayberry either. I locked it, double-checked, sat on the bed, gripping my knees, trying to make this make sense. And then my phone buzzed. Tasha, you okay? I swallowed hard, forcing my fingers to type. Me? I don't know. The next few days, I tried to pretend it was nothing. A prank. A weird coincidence. Something I could forget if I just acted normal. So I worked, buried myself in deadlines, made playlists full of old school rock, Zeppelin, Fleetwood Mac, Springsteen, just to fill the silence in my apartment. But no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, one thought kept circling back. If someone got in once, they could get in again. I started keeping a knife in my nightstand. Not a big one, just a small, sharp thing I picked up at a hardware store, meant for cutting boxes. Not anything worse, but it made me feel better. Until the second photo appeared. It was Friday night. I got home late, dumped my bag on the couch, and went to the kitchen for a beer. Cracked it open, took a sip, and stopped, because there was something sitting on the counter. Something that hadn't been there when I left. A photo. Another one of me and Caleb. This time, sitting on his shitty old couch, drinking whiskey straight from the bottle, and laughing at something on TV. I stepped closer, my pulse hammering. The back of the photo was facing up, and scrawled in my own handwriting. "Why did you lie?" I nearly knocked the bottle over. My mouth was dry. My fingers felt numb. I backed away, heart jackhammering in my ribs. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't funny. Someone had been in my apartment. Again. And they wanted me to know. I didn't sleep that night. I double-checked the locks, moved the knife from my nightstand to under my pillow, laid there, staring at the ceiling, waiting for a noise, a shadow, something. But nothing happened. Nothing at all. And somehow, that made it worse. Because whoever was doing this, they weren't in a hurry. They were taking their time. And I had no idea when they'd come back. I called the cops the next morning. I didn't want to. I knew how it would go. Some bored officer would show up, look around, tell me there was no sign of forced entry, and give me the whole, maybe you misplaced it routine. But I didn't care. I needed someone to confirm I wasn't losing my mind. The cop who showed up was mid-40s, dowdy, with a thick Boston accent that turned door into daw. He strolled through my apartment, arms crossed, asking all the usual questions. Anything else missing? No. You changed the locks after the breakup? Yes. You sure you didn't print these photos yourself? I clenched my jaw. Yes. He sighed, scribbling something in his notepad. Look, miss. He glanced at my lease on the counter. Mason, here's what I think. You been under a lot of stress. The breakup, moving, living alone for the first time in a while. These things mess with ya head. Maybe you forgot you printed these photos, or maybe ya ex had access to your phone somehow, deleted him as some kinda dumb revenge thing. I cut him off. That still doesn't explain how the pictures ended up here. He didn't have an answer for that. Instead, he handed me a card. Call if something else happens. That was it. No patrol car outside, no fingerprints, no investigation. Just a damn business card. I shut the door behind him and exhaled through my nose, trying not to scream. Fine. If the cops weren't gonna help me, I'd figure this out myself. I started with the building. My apartment was on the third floor of an old brownstone. The kind with creaky hardwood, high ceilings, and walls thin enough to hear your neighbor arguing about fantasy football at 2 a.m. I knocked on a few doors, asked if anyone had seen anything weird lately. Most people gave me nothing, except for Mrs. Donahue. She was in her 70s, a widow, always smelled like lavender and mothballs. The kind of old lady who knew everything happening in the building. When I asked if she'd seen anyone near my place, she frowned. Young man in a hoodie, she said, few nights ago, hanging around the front steps, like he was waiting for someone. My stomach twisted. Did you see his face? No, dear. But when I went outside, he left in a hurry. I swallowed. Did he leave anything? Her forehead wrinkled. A note. I froze. What kind of note? She motioned for me to wait and disappeared into her apartment. When she came back, she was holding a small, crumpled piece of paper. I unfolded it, and my blood turned to ice, because written in my own handwriting just like on the photos. Where did you go? I went back upstairs and locked myself in. My thoughts were racing. Whoever this was, they weren't just breaking in. They were following me, tracking me, watching me. And somehow, they had a way to make it look like I was the one writing these messages, which meant one of two things. They knew me. They wanted me to think I was going insane. Neither of those options were good. I picked up my phone and did something I really didn't want to do. I called Caleb. He answered on the third ring. "Wow," he said. "Didn't think I'd ever hear from you again." I ignored the bitterness in his voice. "I need to ask you something." Silence. Then, cautious. "Okay." I took a breath. "Did you delete our photos?" More silence. Then, "What?" "The photos. From my phone. Did you delete them?" His voice dropped. "Jesus, Maggie. No. Why would I do that?" I ran a hand through my hair. I wanted to believe him. But there was one last thing I had to ask. Have you been in my apartment?" That one really pissed him off. "Maggie, what the hell?" "Of course not. I don't even know where you live now." And the thing was, I believed him. Because whatever this was, it was bigger than Caleb. And I was running out of time to figure out what the hell was happening to me. I barely slept that night. Every little noise, the pipes creaking, the wind against the window, the hum of the fridge, made my skin crawl. At some point, exhaustion won. I slipped into a light, uneasy sleep, and woke up to the sound of my front door unlocking. My eyes flew open. My heart slammed against my ribs. I wasn't dreaming. There was someone in my apartment. I rolled out of bed, silent, my pulse roaring in my ears. My knife. Where the hell was my knife? A shadow passed under the bedroom door. I froze. They were inside. Whoever had been leaving the photos, whoever had been writing the messages, they were here. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and dialed 911. The operator picked up. "This is 911. What's your emergency?" I opened my mouth, and the bedroom door handle turned. I backed up. My hands were slick with sweat. Then, footsteps. Moving away. The door to my apartment clicked shut. They were gone. By the time the cops showed up, I was shaking so hard I could barely talk. 2 officers searched the place. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints. No proof that I wasn't just some crazy girl having a breakdown. The only thing out of place. A photo. Sitting on my coffee table. Of me. Asleep in my bed. Taken last night. I couldn't breathe. The officer, a younger guy, mid-30s, dark hair, picked up the photo, turning it over. There was no note this time. Just the timestamp. 2:47 a.m. Right there, printed in the corner like a goddamn trophy. That was it. That was the moment I broke. "I'm not staying here," I said, voice shaking. The cop nodded. "That's probably a good idea." Tasha showed up 20 minutes later. She took one look at me, pale, shaking, barely holding it together, and pulled me into a hug. "Pack a bag," she said. "You're staying with me." I didn't argue. I threw some clothes into my duffel, grabbed my laptop, and stuffed the knife into my pocket. The whole time, I kept waiting for the door to slam shut, for someone to grab me, for this nightmare to get worse. But nothing happened. And when I walked out of that apartment, I swore I was never coming back. Tasha's place was small but cozy, all warm lighting and soft blankets. The kind of place that felt safe. But I didn't feel safe. I sat on her couch, staring at my phone, trying to piece everything together. Whoever this was, they weren't just watching me. They weren't just breaking in. They wanted me to know they were close. They wanted me to doubt myself. And worst of all, they were winning. That night, I stayed up late, scrolling through my phone, reading articles about stalkers, gaslighting, All the psychological tricks people use to break someone down. I tried to convince myself that it was over, that I was safe, that I was out. And then, my phone buzzed. An unknown number, with a single message, a photo of me, sitting on Tasha's couch. Right now, I dropped my phone like it was a live wire. The photo was impossible. Tasha and I were alone. We locked the door. We checked the windows. There was no way someone could have taken that picture, unless they were inside. I shot up from the couch, heart pounding. What? Tasha's face creased with concern. I grabbed my phone and turned the screen toward her. Her eyes flicked down, then widened. Oh, hell no. Her head snapped toward the windows, then the closet, then the hallway leading to the bedroom. I could see it in her face. She was thinking the same thing I was. "We need to get out," she said, voice low. I nodded. I started moving toward the door. Then we heard it. A creak. Not from the hallway. Not from the windows. From inside the apartment. Tasha grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. I couldn't breathe. Then, another creak. The coat closet. I swallowed. My whole body was screaming run. But I didn't run. Instead, I moved. Slow, careful, toward the closet. Tasha hissed, "What the hell are you doing?" But I didn't answer, because my ears were ringing. My pulse was hammering. And all I could think was, if they're in there, I need to know. I raised a shaking hand and yanked the door open. Nothing. Just coats, a few old pairs of shoes. Empty. But something was wrong. The coats were pushed forward, like someone had been standing behind them. My stomach dropped. I shoved the coats aside. And there, in the shadows, was a crawlspace door, slightly ajar. Oh my God. I stepped back so fast I nearly tripped. Tasha's face went pale. "Call the cops," I whispered. She already was. I heard her say the words. Someone's been hiding in my apartment. But it felt like she was miles away, because I was staring at that tiny, dark opening. And I was thinking about the photos, the break-ins, the unlocked bedroom window. And I realized they were never breaking in. They were already here. The cops showed up in under 5 minutes. Guns drawn, flashlights slicing through the dark. 2 of them went in, crawling through that tight, claustrophobic space. And when they came back out, they weren't alone. His name was Elliot Fry. Late 20s, unemployed. Arrest record full of petty theft and breaking and entering. I didn't recognize him. I'd never met him in my life. But he knew me. He knew everything about me, because he'd been living inside my walls. The crawl space ran through the entire building, an old maintenance passage from back when the place had a radiator system, long forgotten, long abandoned, until him. He'd been there for weeks, slipping in and out through the walls, moving between apartments, watching me through vents and cracks. He stole my photos. He wrote those notes in my own handwriting by copying old grocery lists I'd thrown away. He made me think I was losing my mind, because that was part of the game. And the worst part, the cops found a sleeping bag back there, a pile of empty food wrappers, a notebook filled with my name over and over, and a Polaroid camera. I moved out the next day. Tasha too. Neither of us wanted to spend another second in that building. Elliot was charged with stalking, breaking and entering, and unlawful surveillance. But you want to know the worst part? He made bail. It's been 6 months. I moved to a new city, changed my number, got a new job. But I still don't sleep well. Every time I close my eyes, I hear it. That creak from the closet. That soft click of a camera shutter. And some nights, when it's really late, and I'm really tired, I swear I see a flash of light from the vents. Like someone's still there. Still watching. Still waiting. The next story. Listen to it till the end. It will surprise you with its unexpected twist. The forest at night has a way of swallowing sound, turning the world into a void of shadows and whispers. The air smelled of pine and damp earth, the scent of decay woven into the fresh mountain breeze. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hooted, a low, mournful call that echoed through the towering trees. Cameron adjusted the straps of his backpack, shifting the weight off his shoulders. His legs ached from the day's hike, but they were finally here. The clearing marked on the old map they found online. Supposedly, it had been a popular camping spot decades ago, but now it was just another forgotten corner of Yellowstone. Jesus, this place is straight out of the Blair Witch Project, Dan muttered, dropping his pack onto the ground. Yeah, well, as long as no one starts stacking sticks or leaving creepy little dolls, I think we'll be fine, said Mia, brushing her blonde ponytail over her shoulder. They were 6 in total. Cameron, the planner. Dan, the skeptic. Mia, the one who always had a sarcastic remark ready. Tyler, her boyfriend, whose only real contribution to the trip had been carrying the heavier gear. Sarah, the quiet one, who had barely said a word since they got here. And Jason, the wild card, who always found a way to turn any situation into something out of a bad horror movie. They set up camp, pitching tents in a loose circle, with a small fire in the middle. Jason cracked open a beer, took a long sip, and leaned back against his backpack. So, what's the deal with this place? He asked. Cameron, the only one who had actually researched the area, pulled out a folded printout from his jacket pocket. It used to be a main stop for hikers back in the 90s, but there were a few incidents. Jason smirked. Let me guess. People went missing. Cameron shrugged. Just one. Some guy named Peter Klein. Solo hiker. Last seen here in 2003. His tent was found, but no sign of him. The park rangers figured he must have fallen into a ravine or something. Mia rolled her eyes. So basically, 127 hours, but without the inspirational ending. Something like that, Cameron said. They let the conversation die there. The fire crackled, sending glowing embers up into the night sky. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying with it the distant howl of a coyote. Then, just as Tyler reached into his bag for another beer, Sarah spoke for the first time that night. There's another tent, she said. Everyone turned. What? Cameron asked. Sarah pointed to the edge of the clearing, just beyond the firelight. There, half hidden behind the trees, was a tent. A single weathered tent, sagging under its own weight, covered in a layer of dirt and leaves. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years. Jason let out a low whistle. Okay, that's creepy as hell. Cameron stood up, brushing dirt off his jeans. It's probably abandoned. Maybe a ranger left it. Or maybe it's Peter Klein's, Maya said with a half smirk. Dan scoffed. Come on, that was 20 years ago. No way it's still standing. Cameron grabbed his flashlight and walked toward the tent. The others followed, their footsteps crunching against the forest floor. The fabric of the tent was brittle. The color faded from what might have once been green to a sickly gray. Anyone want to go first? Jason asked, his usual bravado suddenly absent. Cameron sighed and reached for the zipper. It resisted at first, stiff from years of neglect. Then, with a sharp tug, it slid open. Inside, there was nothing but a sleeping bag, neatly laid out. A flashlight sat beside it, covered in dust. But it was what was in the corner that made everyone freeze. A small leather-bound journal. Cameron picked it up. The cover was cracked, the pages yellowed. He flipped it open and read the last entry, scribbled in hurried handwriting. Something is out there. I saw it again tonight, watching me. I don't think I'm getting out of here. If someone finds this, tell my mom I tried. The date, 3 days ago. And that was impossible. Silence clung to the forest, thick and suffocating, as the group huddled around the journal. Cameron's grip tightened on the worn leather cover, his pulse pounding in his ears. 3 days ago. Maya scoffed. That has to be a joke. Dan took the journal from Cameron and squinted at the faded ink. Maybe some hiker found an old diary and thought it'd be funny to mess with people. But why leave it here? Sarah murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Jason let out a nervous laugh. All right, Scooby-Doo. What's the rational explanation? Time travel? Ghosts? Some hiker with the worst handwriting ever. Cameron wasn't laughing. He flipped back a few pages, skimming the entries. First night, thought I heard footsteps. Probably just an animal. Second night, the footsteps were closer. Saw movement in the trees. No sign of anyone. Then, a few pages later, don't know how long I've been out here. My watch stopped. My food is gone. Whatever is out there doesn't want me leaving. Jesus, Tyler muttered, rubbing his arms. Cameron took a deep breath, trying to ground himself in something logical. Look, maybe someone's been squatting here. A lost hiker, a survivalist, I don't know. Either way, they're gone now. But the tent, Maya trailed off. It looks ancient. The thought dug into Cameron's brain like a splinter. If this tent had been abandoned for years, how could there be a fresh entry in the journal? Jason nudged the sleeping bag with his boot. Dust puffed into the air. Well, whoever they were, they didn't leave in a hurry. Dan shook his head. Enough of this X-Files crap. Let's go back to camp. The group trudged back to their fire, but the air felt different now. Thicker, colder. No one spoke as they sat down, the flames casting uneasy shadows on their faces. Cameron kept the journal in his lap, flipping through the last few pages. There was something unsettling about the way the handwriting shifted, steady at first, then jittery, as if written by a shaking hand. Then he noticed something else. A name. If anyone finds this, my name is Peter Klein. The silence in Cameron's head was deafening. Guys, he said, his voice hoarse. It's him. Mia frowned. What? This is Peter Klein's journal. A beat of silence. Then Jason let out a nervous laugh. No way. That dude disappeared 20 years ago. Cameron turned the journal around, pointing to the final entry. The ink was faded, but the letters were still legible. Sarah's breath hitched. So, he never left. The fire crackled. The wind whispered through the trees. And then, somewhere in the darkness beyond their camp, a twig snapped. Everyone froze. Jason turned his head slowly, his body tensed like a coiled spring. Tell me that was one of you. No one moved. The firelight barely reached the edge of the clearing, but Cameron swore he saw movement. A shape shifting between the trees. Something, or someone, was watching them. Cameron's grip tightened around the journal as another twig snapped, closer this time. The sound was deliberate, like a footstep testing the ground. The group sat frozen around the fire, breaths held, muscles locked. The forest had always been full of noises, wind in the branches, the distant hoot of an owl, the rustling of unseen critters. But this was different. This wasn't nature. This was intentional. Jason swallowed hard. Okay, seriously, if one of you is screwing around. No one's screwing around, Mia whispered. Cameron's mind raced, trying to find a rational explanation. It could be another hiker, some park ranger checking on campsites. But deep down, he knew better. There was something off about this place, about that journal, about the abandoned tent that looked like it belonged to another decade. And now someone, or something, was standing just outside the ring of firelight, watching. Dan, always the skeptic, exhaled sharply and stood. I'm checking it out. Are you crazy? Sarah hissed. He didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed the flashlight from his pack and took a few steps toward the darkness, the beam cutting through the trees. Nothing. The others waited, their breath coming in shallow gasps. The forest stretched out ahead, endless and still. Dan took another step. And then the flashlight flickered. A split second of darkness. When the light came back, there was something in the trees. A figure, just beyond the reach of the beam. Dan sucked in a sharp breath and took a step back. Cameron saw it too. A silhouette, vague, unmoving. Then the flashlight flickered again, and when the beam returned, the figure was gone. Dan stumbled backward. Screw this. We're leaving. No one argued. They were already shoving things into their packs, dousing the fire in frantic bursts of dirt and water. The darkness thickened around them, pressing close. Cameron's hands shook as he zipped his bag. His mind kept circling back to the journal. Peter Klein. A missing hiker. A tent that should have rotted away years ago. A journal with entries too fresh to make sense. And now something, or someone, watching them from the woods. They had to get out. Dan led the way, flashlight steady despite his shaking hands. Jason and Mia followed close behind, Sarah right on their heels. Cameron took up the rear, his pulse hammering. They walked in tense silence, the only sounds their hurried footsteps and the occasional rustling of leaves. Every so often, Cameron glanced over his shoulder, convinced he'd see that shape again. Nothing. Until they reached the trailhead. That's when Sarah let out a strangled gasp. Cameron spun around, his stomach lurching. There, nailed to a tree at the edge of the trail, was a piece of paper. Yellowed, weathered, but the words were unmistakable. A page from the journal. If anyone finds this, my name is Peter Klein. Do not follow the trail. It does not lead where you think. Cameron's blood ran cold, because when he turned to look back at the trail they had just come from, it wasn't the same one they had taken in. Silence wrapped around them like a death shroud. Jason took a step back, nearly tripping over his own feet. Nope. I'm done. Mia swallowed hard, staring at the nailed page. This is a joke, right? Someone's messing with us. No one answered. Dan snatched the paper off the tree, his fingers curling around the brittle edges. He turned it over, half expecting some sort of prank signature on the back. But there was nothing, just the faint imprint of the same handwriting from the journal. Cameron's stomach twisted. This was nailed here recently. Sarah's breath hitched, but we just walked that trail. No one had passed them. No one had been ahead of them. And yet, someone, or something, had left this here. Dan clenched his jaw. We need to get to the car. Now. They turned toward the dirt lot where they had parked earlier that day, moving fast, feet crunching over leaves and gravel. The cars were just beyond the bend, barely 50 yards away. They could see them. Sarah's Jeep, Jason's old Subaru. Salvation. Then Maya stopped cold. The lights, she whispered. Cameron's pulse spiked. The headlights of all their cars were on. Bright, blinding beams cutting through the dark. Their engines off, yet the lights burning. Did anyone leave their keys inside? Jason's voice cracked. No, Sarah whispered. Mia turned to Cameron, eyes wide. What if someone's inside? They had no choice. They had to check. Dan took the lead, creeping toward Sarah's Jeep. The rest of them followed close behind, scanning the lot, every shadow, every possible hiding place. Cameron's grip tightened around the journal like it was some kind of talisman, as if Peter Klein's words might offer some sort of protection. Dan reached the Jeep first. He cupped his hands around the driver's side window and peered in. Nothing. He tried the handle. It was locked. Jason moved to his Subaru, checking the doors. Locked too. One by one, they checked. Every car was locked. Every key accounted for. And yet, the headlights blazed on. Let's just go, Sarah said, fumbling for her key fob. She clicked the unlock button, the Jeep's lights flashing in response. The others did the same. Dan opened his car door and climbed in. The others piled into their vehicles, hands shaking, hearts hammering. Cameron slid behind the wheel of his old Toyota and exhaled sharply, gripping the wheel. He reached for the ignition. And that's when he saw it. The keys. Not his keys. A different set. sitting neatly in the passenger seat, a single rusted key attached to a cracked plastic tag. The words were faded but still legible. Klein Lodge, Room 6. Cameron's throat went dry. Peter Klein's name. Again. A hotel that shouldn't exist anymore. And then, a noise. From the backseat. Cameron's entire body locked up. A noise. A shift of weight. The unmistakable sound of breathing behind him. Slow, steady, not his own. His fingers trembled over the ignition, his mind screaming at him to move, to run, to do anything but sit there frozen like a deer in headlights. Then, a whisper. Low, hoarse, right behind his ear. Drive. Cameron didn't look. He couldn't. If he turned around and saw whatever was back there, he knew he'd break. His mind, his sanity, gone. So he did the only thing he could. He started the car. The headlights of the other vehicles flickered. Engines roared to life. His friends, still clueless to what was happening in his car, were already pulling out of the lot. Cameron swallowed hard, hands shaking as he gripped the wheel. Where? He whispered, barely able to get the word out. No answer. His pulse slammed against his ribs. He could feel something behind him. A presence. Heavy. Wrong. The air inside the car felt thick, suffocating. He forced himself to breathe. Then, slowly, he pulled onto the road. The headlights from Jason's Subaru cut through the night ahead of him, leading the way back toward the highway. He focused on them, forcing himself to follow, to keep moving. Maybe he was losing it. Maybe the fear, the journal, the missing people, it was all getting to him. And then, from the rearview mirror, a shape, a figure in the backseat. Not a person. The outline of a person. Black, shadowed, featureless, just sitting there. Cameron's breath hitched. His fingers tightened around the wheel until his knuckles turned white. He wanted to scream. He didn't. He kept driving. The road stretched on, winding through the dark forest, the headlights of Jason's Subaru still in front of him, Mia's Jeep right behind. A few miles later, the trees started to thin. The first signs of civilization appeared. A gas station, a flickering neon sign. And just like that, the weight in the backseat lifted. The air returned. Cameron sucked in a breath, cold sweat clinging to his skin. He glanced in the rearview mirror. The backseat was empty. His heart thundered. Had it ever been full? His fingers brushed against something. The key. Klein Lodge, Room 6. His stomach twisted. He should throw it out the window. Toss it. Burn it. Forget it ever existed. Instead, he slipped it into his pocket. Because deep down he knew, this wasn't over. Cameron didn't sleep that night. Back in town, the group had split up in silence, everyone too shaken to talk. Sarah and Mia went to their motel. Jason and Dan crashed at some cheap roadside inn. Cameron, though, sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the key. Klein Lodge, Room 6. He should let it go. Forget it. But his mind wouldn't let him. Peter Klein. The journal. The voices in the woods. The figure in his backseat. It all led back to that burned-down hotel. His fingers curled around the key. He had to know. By morning, Cameron was driving north. Klein Lodge had been abandoned for 2 decades, but he found it. Tucked away in the mountains, past a crumbling roadside diner. The skeletal remains of the hotel stood like a corpse left to rot. The front doors were gone. The lobby was a mess of scorched wood and shattered glass. But the hallway leading to the rooms, still standing. His boots crunched over debris as he walked past door after door, numbers barely visible under years of soot and dust. Then, 6. The door hung open. Inside, the room was untouched. No fire damage. No decay. A bed, neatly made. A suitcase at the foot. Clothes folded on a chair. like someone had just stepped out for air and never came back. On the nightstand, an old rotary phone. It rang. Cameron nearly fell over. He shouldn't answer it, but his hand moved on its own. He lifted the receiver. Static. Then, "You made it." His blood ran cold. He knew the voice. His own. The line went dead. Cameron turned, heart pounding. And that's when he saw it. In the dusty mirror across the room. His reflection. Except it wasn't moving. It was watching him. Smiling. The next story, for its unexpected final, it's worth listening to till the end. The House with No Past. New Orleans, they say, is a city haunted by its own history. Every cracked sidewalk, every wrought iron balcony, every alleyway steeped in shadows. It's all been touched by the past. Jazz, voodoo, hurricanes, murder. This city remembers everything. Except for one house. That was the job. I was hired to dig into the past of a house that, according to every official record, never existed. No property deeds, no census entries, no blueprints in the city archives. It was a ghost, not in the supernatural sense. I don't believe in that crap, but in the way that made me, a private investigator, curious as hell. The client was a lawyer. Tight suit, tight smile. Name was Peter Langley. He met me in a smoky bar off Frenchman Street, slid a manila envelope across the table like we were in a bad noir flick, and said, "I need you to find out everything you can about a house on Charter Street. The owner wants to sell, but we can't establish a clear title. It's like the place doesn't legally exist." I opened the envelope. Inside was a black and white photograph. The house was a 3-story Victorian, the kind you'd expect to see in the Garden District, all steep gables and lacework balconies. Looked well maintained, though the image had a grainy old newsprint quality. "That's it?" I asked. Langley nodded. "There's no tax history, no previous owners, nothing. But I assure you, it's real. My firm's been inside. There's furniture, electricity, running water. But legally, it might as well be invisible." I leaned back in my chair. "You check with the city, talk to past residents." Langley's mouth twitched. "That's the thing, Mr. Hawthorne. No one remembers living there. The neighbors say it's been empty for decades. The city says it was never built." I took a sip of my whiskey. The ice had melted, turning it weak and watery. "All right," I said. "I'll take the job. But if I find out your client's laundering money or covering up a murder, you owe me double." Langley just smiled. A house stood at the end of Charter Street, right where the quarter blurred into the Morini. It was dusk when I arrived, the sky bruised purple, street lamps flickering on one by one. The place looked like every other elegant corpse of New Orleans past, ornate, slightly crumbling, watching the world with shuttered windows like dead eyes. I'd walked up the steps. The porch boards groaned under my weight. The front door wasn't locked. Inside, the air was cool, dry. It didn't have the musty scent of abandonment. No dust motes dancing in the light. No stale odor of mildew. Someone had been here. Recently. The furniture was antique but pristine. A grand piano stood in the parlor, its keys polished. A long dining table sat in the next room, a chandelier hanging over it like a frozen explosion of glass. It looked lived in, but there were no signs of life. I pulled out my phone to snap a picture. The screen flickered, then it went black. Great. I kept moving, stepping into what looked like a study. Books lined the walls, mostly history, some philosophy. A heavy wooden desk stood in the center of the room. That's when I noticed the open drawer. Inside, there were yellowed newspaper clippings. I picked one up. Faemaeloi from Checharterias Storii Tehom, 1952. I frowned and grabbed another. Mysteri Hovus on Checharterias. City Rico Ordiz Sho Vobo Empty Lot. A third. Private DT Kitavide he Jew missing NVESTIGATING ghost house. I stopped, looked at the byline. It was my name. My hands felt cold. The article was dated 3 days from now. And then, a floorboard creaked upstairs. A sound. A single, deliberate step. It came from upstairs. I froze, the newspaper clippings still clutched in my hand. The rational part of my brain ran through the possibilities. An intruder, a squatter, maybe even Langley screwing with me. But deep down, something colder took hold. A feeling I hadn't had since my old homicide detective days, walking into a crime scene that felt wrong before I even saw the body. I put the clippings back, closed the drawer, and pulled the .38 from my ankle holster. "Hey," I called out, my voice steady. "If you're trying to scare me, bad move." Silence. Then, another step. Slow, heavy, right above me. I moved toward the staircase. The banister was dark mahogany, polished so smooth it gleamed even in the dim light. Whoever was up there wasn't in a hurry. They wanted me to hear them. I climbed, gun raised. The wood groaned under my weight, but I kept my steps even. By the time I reached the landing, the house had gone dead silent again. The hallway stretched ahead, lined with closed doors. Stale air pressed against my skin. I turned left, toward the room where I thought the sound had come from. My pulse pounded in my ears. The door was ajar, a sliver of darkness beyond it. I nudged it open with the barrel of my gun. The room was empty. No furniture, no dust. Just 4 bare walls and a wooden floor, like no one had ever lived there. I exhaled. Maybe I was hearing things. Old houses settled, right? The wood shifted, pipes groaned. That had to be it. I turned and stopped cold. There was a mirror on the opposite wall, old, cloudy with time. In its reflection, I saw myself standing in the empty room, gun drawn, staring. But the hallway behind me, it wasn't empty. A shape stood in the mirror's reflection. A figure, tall and unmoving, half hidden in the shadows. I spun around, gun raised. Nothing. The hallway was empty. I whipped back to the mirror, but the figure was gone. My skin prickled. My breath felt too loud. I needed to get out of here. Find something, anything, that made sense. I hurried back downstairs, forcing my brain to shift gears. Facts. Logic. The house didn't exist in any official records, but someone had lived here. Someone had maintained it. That meant paper trails, receipts, something tangible. I needed to talk to the neighbors. Outside, the air was thick with New Orleans humidity. The streets were mostly empty at this hour, just the occasional car rolling past, jazz music drifting from a bar a block away. I crossed to the house next door, a shotgun-style home with peeling blue paint. Knocked twice. No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. Shuffling footsteps. Then the door cracked open, just enough for me to see a woman's face. Late 60s, maybe 70s. Deep lines around her mouth, like she'd spent a lifetime frowning. "You lost?" she asked, voice raspy from either age or cigarettes. "I'm looking for information on the house next door." I thumbed over my shoulder. "You live here long?" Her gaze flickered past me, toward the house. Her fingers tightened on the doorframe. "Too long." I nodded. "Then maybe you can help me. I'm a private investigator. Someone hired me to look into the history of that place. But so far, I got nothing. City records say it doesn't exist." She let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "Yeah, that sounds about right." I frowned. "You saying you remember it being there?" She hesitated. "Not exactly." "What does that mean?" She opened the door a little wider, eyes narrowing. "Look, I don't know what you think you're gonna find, but take my advice. Walk away. Some things don't need to be dug up." I pulled out my phone and held up the black and white photo of the house. "You ever see this place occupied? Any past owners?" Her expression darkened. "No." I studied her. She was lying, or at least holding something back. What about the people before you? I pressed. They ever mention anything about the house? Her jaw tightened. There were no people before me. I blinked. Come again. This house has been in my family for 4 generations, she said. And none of us have ever seen a moving truck pull up next door. No one's ever bought it. No one's ever sold it. It's just there. A chill slid down my spine. That's not possible, I said. Somebody owns it. She just shook her head. Listen, I said, lowering my voice. I found newspaper clippings inside. One mentioned a family that vanished from that house in 1952. Another said a detective went missing investigating it. Her face went pale. I took a step closer. You recognize any of those stories? She swallowed hard. You need to leave. What? She gripped the doorframe. I mean it. Whatever's in that house, it doesn't want to be found. Something about the way she said it made my stomach turn. I exhaled, nodded. All right. Thanks for your time. She didn't reply, just closed the door. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the peeling paint, my mind racing. Then I turned back toward the house and stopped. The front door, the one I knew I had closed when I left, was standing wide open, like it was waiting for me. I stood on the sidewalk, staring at the open door. The street was quiet. No wind, no movement. Just that yawning blackness beyond the threshold, like a mouth waiting to swallow me whole. Logic told me I must have left it open. Maybe I hadn't pulled it shut all the way. Maybe the humidity had swollen the wood, and it creaked open on its own. But I didn't believe that. Not after what I'd seen in the mirror upstairs. I clenched my jaw, forced my feet to move. I wasn't some rookie spooked by a creaky floorboard. I'd walked through worse places than this house. The scene of a double homicide in a roach-infested tenement, where the walls seeped blood long after the cleanup crew left. The basement of a drug den in Brooklyn, where they found 6 bodies stuffed into a freezer, one of them still warm. A dark doorway didn't scare me. At least, that's what I told myself. I stepped inside. The air felt heavier, like the house was pressing in on me. The door whispered shut behind me, and I didn't like the way the sound echoed through the empty space. I took out my phone and pulled up the photo of the newspaper clipping I'd found. Family disappears without a trace, 1952. The names, Charles and Elaine Wexler, and their daughter Mary. I needed to find out more. If the city records had nothing on the house, maybe there was something on the people who lived here. I pulled out my laptop, connected to my mobile hotspot, and started digging. The Wexlers had been a well-off family. Charles Wexler was an attorney, known for defending some high-profile criminals. Mob guys, mostly. Elaine had been a socialite. Their daughter, Mary, was only 6 when they vanished. The police report was thin. No signs of forced entry. No signs of struggle. It was like they had just stopped existing. Neighbors reported seeing lights in the house for weeks after they were gone. A figure moving behind the curtains, but when police searched the place, it was empty. The weirdest part, the house wasn't listed as their residence in any official document. Not on their tax records. Not in property deeds. As far as the system was concerned, they had never lived there. Just like the house itself. I sat back, exhaling. This wasn't just a missing persons case. This was something else. Something I didn't have a name for. My phone buzzed. A text from Langley. You find anything yet? I hesitated, then typed back. Maybe. You ever hear of the Wexlers? A pause. Then, where the hell did you hear that name? That sent a prickle up my spine. Newspaper archive, I wrote. They lived here in the 50s. Another long pause. Then Langley sent something that made my blood run cold. No, they didn't. I knew Charles Wexler. He lived across town. Different house, different street. Never even set foot in that place. I stared at the screen. The newspaper said otherwise. I stood up too fast, my chair scraping against the floor. My heartbeat hammered in my ears. The house didn't exist in any records, but someone remembered it. The Wexlers had no legal connection to the house, but there was evidence they lived here. A contradiction. Two realities scraping against each other, both insisting they were true. I needed proof, something tangible. I grabbed my flashlight and went back upstairs. The room with the mirror was the first place I checked. The glass was old, warped, but still intact. Nothing behind me this time. Then I moved down the hall, checking the other rooms. All empty, until I reached the last door. It was locked. I jiggled the handle, put my shoulder into it. The wood groaned but held firm. Then, a sound, a whisper, so faint I almost convinced myself I imagined it. It came from the other side of the door. I took a step back, heart pounding. Something about this room felt different. Like the air was thicker, like I wasn't supposed to be here. I needed to get inside. I hurried back downstairs, looking for something to break the door down. That's when I saw it. A key, sitting on the kitchen counter. I knew it hadn't been there before. I picked it up, cold metal against my palm. My gut twisted, warning me to walk away. Instead, I turned and went back upstairs. I slid the key into the lock and turned it. The door swung open with a long, aching creak. The smell hit me first. Rot, like something long dead, sealed away for decades. I lifted my flashlight, and that's when I saw the writing on the walls. The writing covered every inch of the walls. Faded, scratched deep into the old plaster, like someone had carved the words with shaking hands. They are not Gjonen. They are not Gjonen. They are not Gjonen. Over and over again, the same phrase. Hundreds of times. My breath came fast, shallow. I forced myself to step forward. The room was small, barely the size of a walk-in closet. No furniture, no windows, just walls covered in desperate, jagged letters. The air felt thick, like it was pressing down on me. I aimed my flashlight lower. Then I saw the floor. The wood was stain dark. Too dark to be just old water damage. My gut twisted. I crouched down, ran my fingers over the rough grain. It was dry. Old. Whatever had soaked into this floorboards had been here for decades. I exhaled, tried to steady my hands. The house had been empty for years, but someone had been here before me. Someone who had locked this room, left a key in plain sight. No, that didn't make sense. The key had appeared after I tried to get in, like it had been waiting for me. I stood up too fast, my head swimming. I needed to get out of this room, out of this house, get some air, clear my head. I turned, and the door slammed shut behind me. I froze. My flashlight flickered. My heart slammed against my ribs. I grabbed the doorknob, twisted hard. It didn't budge. I rattled it, shoved my shoulder against the door. Nothing. The house was old. Doors could jam. That was logical. That was rational. But that didn't explain the cold. The air in the tiny room had dropped 20 degrees in an instant. My breath came in short, white clouds. I stepped back, forcing myself to breathe. My pulse roared in my ears, drowning out everything else, except for the sound, a soft, rhythmic tapping. Not from the door, not from the walls, from inside the room. I swung my flashlight, heart hammering, and that's when I saw it. In the corner of the room, where the writing was deepest, the wood floor bowed downward, a perfect circle, like the ground had swallowed something whole. No, like something had been covered up. The tapping came again. From under the floor, my body locked up. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I was trapped. I swallowed, forced my feet to move. The boards creaked under me as I crouched, ran my hand over the uneven surface. Soft, like the wood had been replaced. My mouth went dry. I didn't have tools. No crowbar. Nothing to pry the floor up. But I had my hands. I slid my fingers between the seams, wedged them under the loosened planks, and pulled. The wood groaned, nails screaming as they tore free. The smell hit me like a hammer. Damp earth, rot, something deeper, older. I coughed, turned my head, but kept pulling. The last board came free, and I saw the hole beneath the floor. Deep, black, a narrow shaft that led straight into the darkness. The tapping had stopped. The only sound was my own ragged breath. Then, a whisper, so close it could have been against my ear. They are not gone. I threw myself backward, scrambling against the wall. My flashlight slipped from my fingers, rolled toward the hole, and then it fell in. I watched it drop, the beam shrinking smaller and smaller, until it hit something that moved. I lunged for the door, slammed my shoulder against it. The wood cracked, again, harder, a third time, and the door burst open. I stumbled into the hallway, my back hitting the opposite wall. My pulse was a wild animal in my chest. I gasped in air, gripping the doorframe for balance. The room behind me was pitch black. The flashlight was still down there. I wasn't going back for it. I turned and ran. Down the stairs, through the foyer, past the parlor, out the front door. The moment I hit the porch, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with shaking hands. Langley. I hit answer. Jesus Christ. You need to get out of there. His voice was flat. No jokes. No small talk. Just cold, dead seriousness. I just did. I panted. Langley. There's something under that house. There's. Listen to me. His voice cut through my panic like a blade. Walk to your car. Get in. Drive away. Right now. I turned, already halfway down the porch steps. My car sat at the curb, just a dozen feet away. I reached into my pocket for my keys. Langley spoke again. You still outside the house? Yeah. Why? A pause. Then, look up. The hairs on my arms rose. Slowly, I turned and saw the window on the second floor. The room with the hole in the floor. A figure stood there, not moving, not blinking, just watching me. I couldn't move. The figure in the window stood completely still. No shift in weight, no twitch of a hand, just a dark silhouette against the dim glow of the room, watching me. I gripped the phone tighter. Langley, my voice barely came out. You still see it? He asked. Yeah. A sharp exhale. Don't take your eyes off it. My mouth went dry. Why? Because Langley said, it's not supposed to be there. I swallowed. You want to tell me what the hell that means? Langley was silent for a beat. Then, that house shouldn't exist. A slow chill ran through my body. You're gonna have to do better than that. Listen to me. His voice was urgent now. I started looking after you left. Pulled property records, tax assessments, old maps. Nothing. Not one official document says that house was ever built. It's not just unregistered. It's like it was never there at all. I gritted my teeth. I'm standing right in front of it, Langley. Yeah, he said. That's the problem. I chanced to glance back up. The figure hadn't moved. Not an inch. Something about it felt wrong. Like it wasn't standing there. Like it had been placed there. A shape meant to be seen. Langley's voice cut back in. Get in your car. Drive. Don't go home. Just go. I didn't argue. Keys in hand, I moved fast. Down the porch steps, across the sidewalk. My heart pounded, every nerve screaming at me to run. I yanked the car door open, threw myself inside, locked the doors, turned the key. The engine roared to life. I risked one last glance at the house. The window was empty. The figure was gone. I slammed the gas pedal. The tires screeched against the asphalt. I didn't stop, didn't check my mirrors, Just kept driving, white-knuckling the wheel. Blocks blurred past. Houses, streetlights, neon glow from bars, still open past midnight. I didn't slow down until I hit the highway, until the city swallowed the roads behind me. Only then did I let out a shaky breath. I was out, but I wasn't safe. Langley's voice still rattled in my head. That house shouldn't exist. I didn't go home that night. I drove to a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, paid in cash, showered until the hot water ran out. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the writing on the walls. They are not Kyonen, and the whisper, right at my ear. Epilogue. I quit the case. Langley didn't argue. He just told me to stay away. Said he was going to bury whatever research he'd done. Wiped the house off every database he could touch. Neither of us talked about the figure in the window. A week later, I drove past the lot where the house had stood. It was empty. Not abandoned. Not condemned. Just gone. Like it had never been there at all. And yet, when I got home that night, there was a letter in my mailbox. No return address. Just a single folded piece of paper inside. 5 words, scrawled in jagged, desperate handwriting. They are not Kyonen.